I've got the woe begone, down low, Mifwump Blues. But grandfather's garden is the cure for the Mifwump Blues.
Hello, I'm Riane Eisler, President of the Center for Partnership Studies, and I want to welcome you to this wonderful series of readings from Grandfather's Garden, a new book full of whimsy and imagination for little and big folk that is to be enjoyed by both children and by grown-ups. And I want to tell you, I love these stories. And also want to tell you that in addition to the reading of the stories, which will follow, I am actually going to do one episode in addition where I'm interviewing their amazing author, Dr. David Loye. But now I want to introduce our wonderful Brie Mathers, whose idea this was, and to thank you, Brie, so much for doing this and for this reading, especially in this time when so many of us are homebound due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So without further ado, here is Brie.
Thank you, Riane. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. I am the director of the Girls Resiliency Education Fund, which is a project of the Center for Partnership Studies. And today I'm so happy to be putting on a new hat and reading a series of stories from Grandfather's Garden. So I've been so happy to know Riane for about 8 years now and receive her mentorship. And I'm very excited to share these wonderful children's stories with you. So without further ado, here is the book, Grandfather's Garden. Perhaps some of you have already purchased it on Amazon. If you haven't, it can be found there. And for all the children who are out there watching, and I want to say hello to Carter and Bennett and Leah and Mateo. There's so many that I know are going to be watching this. And Jake. And I also want to invite you to pull out your pencil crayons, your markers, your crayons, and to let your imagination take flight, because at the end of each of these videos, we are going to invite you to send us your magical drawings. So we want to know what you saw inside your imagination during each one of these readings. Okay? So thank you for joining us, and I'm going to start with the prologue for Grandfather's Garden. I was a lonely child. I lived on a shelf in the closet at the bottom of the stairs. There it was that out of little scraps of sponge rubber, I built my little village. There, squenched up on that shelf, curled around them like a mother bird hovering over her nestlings, I built my village out of red, black, brown, and white bits for my little people, green for little bushes and trees, and purple and other colors for my little houses and other buildings. There, out of me and my tiny friends, I saw endless stories of high adventure, heroism, and romance unfold. Oh, I went to school and doctors, and sometimes I played quaint old games like kick the can, spin the bottle, or tree tag with other boys and girls. But it wasn't the same. I was safe and snug there on the shelf with my little people and the wonder of the great doings that out of nowhere came to life in our own little world. It was like I was alive on the shelf, but as empty as a ghost in that other world. Out of the all too often horrifying hullabaloo of that other world, twice a week, our little bubble was punctuated by the roar of the quaint old vacuum sweeper right outside the closet door. First came the bang, then the snarl like the growl of a snuffling beast, then our little world's vast sigh of relief as the creature became only a tiny whine, the poof like a candle, went out. And twice a day came the shower of dust shook loose by the pound of feet up and down the stairs. And sometimes the door opened, and along with the whop of mind-blinding light came the whomp of shoes tossed into a clump on the closet floor. So that was it for most of the year. And then it happened. For every year at Christmas, as the gift I wanted most, I got to stay and work with grandfather in his garden. Eggplants big as elephants, tap dancing stalks of celery, a pomegranate that made itself a big bass drum and walked around with a cheery boom, 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 followed by a string of tootling trumpet vines. And grapes as big as basketballs. Huge potatoes we scooped into boats we paddled around the lake with sliced carrots for oars. Even popcorn that on hot days popped itself, and blueberries that picked and cooked themselves for the best of pies and pancakes. And best of all, were the boys and girls that grandfather invited from all over the world to show us how to grow the magic mush melon that could feed billions of poor people for only a nickel a day. Grandfather was a funny little man with crinkly eyes, a red nose, and a bouncing bush of frizzy white hair that stood out in all directions. He could tap dance and play the banjo, and like normally never happened with grown-ups, he could listen to your problems. And every night we all gathered around the campfire, and the moon came out, and the wind died down, and we sat there, keyed up, quiet, giggling, waiting while the sounds of the night wove their spell. Bats squeaked, whippoorwills moaned, owls hooted, and up from the lake came the lonesome, long, wild, and crazy laugh of the loon. Here are some of the stories he told as we bunched together around the crackle and whistling of the fire on those enchanted nights. Talk about fodder for the imagination. That is just the beginning. So now we're going to start with our first story, which is called The Carnival of Vegetables. And I just want to show you this lovely illustration, if you can see that. This wonderful illustration of a ballerina and an elephant and a horse. Here it goes. Once upon a time, there were some very, very, very poor children who lived in South America in the town of Boca Nieve de la Santo Teobaldo. Nothing good ever happened in their lives. They had to work in the fields every day. They couldn't go to school. They didn't have any shoes. It was just a very miserable life. In one of the garden patches where they worked, there was a string bean who became very concerned about them. His name was Giorgio. There was also an older string bean whom they called Grandma Mamma Mia. And one day, Giorgio said to Grandma Mamma Mia, "I just wish there was something I could do for the poor children of Boca Nieve de la Santo Teobaldo." Well, Grandma Mamma Mia said, "There is goodness in you, Giorgio. There is a luminosity about your string beanness that I have noticed from first when you were just a blossom on the vine. Think upon it. Nurture your goodness, and you will find a way to bring happiness into their lives." Christmas was coming, and the little children just looked so dismal because they knew Christmas was coming and they knew nothing was going to happen special this year. And little Giorgio, this string bean, just felt awful about it. He said to Grandma Mamma Mia, "What can I do? I just must do something for them this Christmas." She said, There is goodness in you, Giorgio. Think upon it, and a miracle will come to pass. The Christmas miracle. And so it happened. As Christmas approached, all Giorgio thought about was his wish to make them happy. And lo and behold, on Christmas Eve, he felt a tingling inside of him, and he felt a strange urge to take out one of his beans and touch it to the nearest vegetable. Well, the nearest vegetable was an eggplant. So Giorgio touched his bean to the eggplant, and it turned into an elephant. He said, "Grandma, Mamma Mia, look at what has happened. This eggplant has turned into an elephant." And she said, Giorgio, this is so exciting. You have magic power. There is magic in your beans. She said, "You can transform all the vegetables into a carnival. You can have a carnival of vegetables, and you can entertain the children." So Giorgio danced about the garden patch, and he touched one of his beans to a carrot, and it became a ringmaster, and he touched one of his beans to a potato, and it became a great fine white horse. And he touched one of his beans to a stalk of celery, and it became a beautiful ballerina who could twirl on the back of the horse. He touched another bean to some zucchini, and they all became high wire artists and tightrope walkers. They would swing from swings and jump from place to place. He touched a patch of parsley that had never amounted to anything and felt very inferior to all the other vegetables. And his magic beans were by now so powerful, and he was doing so much good in the world, like Grandma Mamma Mia said, and they all turned into lions and tigers. They roared, and everybody noticed them, and they provided a lot of entertainment. He went into an onion patch and touched them with another bean, and they all turned into clowns who would roll around and tell jokes and go and sit in people's laps and make them cry. Because even though they were clowns, they were still onions. And this made people's tears run down their face, even though they were laughing and happy. All the children were just overwhelmed by this wonderful carnival of animals for Christmas Eve. They were just wonderfully entertained for Christmas Eve with all the wonderful animals performing for them. Giorgio's children, at the stroke of midnight, all the animals and clowns and tightrope walkers and the lovely ballerina turned back into vegetables. But the children were so happy they felt no regrets, because at last something exciting and wonderful had happened in their drab little lives. But unfortunately, little Giorgio, in giving them so much pleasure, had used up all his own energy. He had given all the beans out of his own self except one. And he was sinking. He lay there and could barely move. Grandma Mamma Mia came and wept over him. She said, "Oh, Giorgio, you're so good, and you've given your life to the poor children." And he said, "Grandma Mamma Mia, I don't mind to have given my life to bring a little happiness into this world." Just at that moment, as he was sinking, and as Grandma Mamma Mia was wringing her hands in despair, one of the little children who was leaving saw him. She said to another child, who was her friend, "Oh, look, there's a little string bean with just one bean left in it. Let's plant it in our own little garden and see what happens." And so, at the very last moment, Giorgio was saved. The children planted his last bean in their own little garden, and of course, a new string bean vine grew in that spot. And every year at Christmas, one of Giorgio's own children The string beans who grew up from his own last bean would once again go through the garden patch and touch the magic beans to all the vegetables. And for that one night of the year, year after year after year, every Christmas Eve, there was this wonderful carnival of vegetables to delight the poor children of Boca Nieve de la Santo Teobaldo. A moral for the story: the desire to do good in the world can work miracles. So I just want to invite all of the children watching to take a minute and close your eyes and just imagine what goodness you might bring to other people, especially right now while we're all sheltering in place and some people might feel a little bit scared sometimes or a little bit anxious. What magic might you bring? We are so looking forward to seeing the pictures that you've drawn, and we hope you will send them to us. And we're also looking forward to reading your own stories. So if you have a story with a moral at the end of it, we also want you to send that to us. And we're going to provide that email address that you can send to us at the bottom of the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we are looking forward to our next reading, which is called, this is going to be a wonderful one. It's called The Clam That Made a Pearl. See you next time.
I've got the woe begone, down low Mifwump Blues. But grandfather's garden is the cure for the Mifwump Blues.